Welcome back to another week in Toronto Blue Jays land. And ladies and gentlemen, I am ready to be hurt again. We're going to talk about the contract involving Anthony Santander.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Brittany Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden Wasco, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays as well. If you're new here to YouTube or you listen somewhere else, make sure you head over to the YouTube page. You drop a subscription. It's free to do so. You might as well. And you'll be up to date on podcasts, live streams, videos, shorts, the whole deal. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. We are a couple away from 2,000. We're almost there. It's crazy that we're there, already. But you guys and the support, the comments, the likes, everything, all of it has been outstanding. The responses to the Twitter, to our Twitters, to our TikToks, Instagrams, everything has been really, really great. In saying that, Carter, a lot to get into. Oh, also, Discord links in the description. Carter's been active in there, chatting with you guys about some Blue Jays related stuff, just sort of whenever. If something pops up, you can ask us a question. We might get your guys' opinion on stuff in there as well. Make sure you hit that link in the description. Carter, a lot to get into today. A ton, actually. Let's just start here, I guess. Are you ready to be hurt once again by this Toronto Blue Jays organization?
I don't even know if I could say it's being hurt because I'm not really expecting a whole lot from this front office anymore. At the start of this offseason, we had kind of our pickings. We were like, oh, we prefer this guy over this guy. We prefer Bregman over Santander. We prefer, obviously, Juan Soto over all of the above. Now we're just like, can we get anyone? Like, it's not even Anthony Santander. It's like, hey, can we, like, Lance Lynn might be a good signing at this point. Nick Pivetta might be a good signing at this point. Literally anything that can help this baseball team. I think a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans are on the same page regarding to that. But the offer is in. The Toronto Blue Jays have offered Anthony Santander a contract. And we were talking at the start of this offseason, we thought the Santander talks would get between 25, 30 million. Toronto Blue Jays are being the Toronto Blue Jays once again. And you could say it's a low ball, but I think it wouldn't be a low ball. Clearly, other teams are not offering Santander that 25 to 30 million, or he would have taken that already in hindsight. But the offer is in. The Toronto Blue Jays, from reports, they have reportedly offered Santander a 4-year, $82 million deal. That is $20.5 million per. Once you're hearing that, like, how are you feeling about that offer? Do you think it's a little low, a little high? Just overall thoughts on the Toronto Blue Jays actually offering Santander a contract.
Again, we know that the Toronto Blue Jays aren't the only team in on Santander. There are going to be a ton of teams. We heard the Detroit Tigers were one of them. There are teams all over the
list
map.
Here. It's the Tigers, the Angels, the Jays, obviously, the Astros, the Mets, the Orioles, and the Red Sox. So again, very, very long list of teams there. It's not just the Toronto Blue Jays. There is still some market competition for a guy like Anthony Santander.
Yeah, so in my head, I think 20.5 per year seems very low. I expected Santander, we talked about, you said this episode already, that we expected him to get more than that, and I still expect him to get more than that. I think that this is a very low ball offer. Originally, before the offseason, he was looking to get a 5-year, $100 million deal, or $100 million plus dollar deal, and this just doesn't make sense to me. I think this is your only option to now make somewhat of a splash here. A guy that me and you have talked about, the fit is there, everything is there for Santander. And for this Blue Jays organization, why lowball him? Why not give him the 5 years at $100 million and secure him? Make sure he comes here. Make sure that there is no conversation around where he might go. You need to be the team at the top of the list here for the fans' sake, for the organization's sake, for giving Vlad and Bo something to play for besides their next contract. This all seems pretty ridiculous to me, Carter, at $20.5 million. I feel like that is 100% a low ball, and I know we've had the conversations around, the market is the market, and it'll set what a player's value is based on what contracts are offered. But to me, in a make it or break it type of moment for this offseason, that's pretty much what this is. If you don't land Santander, I don't know where you go next. I don't know what you do next. So in my head, this has to be a piece that you sort of yeah, you overpay for. I think we're getting to the point where that's the only option here.
See, and I don't think it's as much about like an overpay in terms of market value because you just said it right there. 5 years, 100 million. The Jays offered him 4 years, 82 million. So, and in terms of value, the contract is a little bit more from what the Jays value compared to the 5 year, $100 million. What Anthony Santander is probably looking for is the term. He wants to be with a team for 5, 6, 7 years, and I think that's why he hasn't signed yet. Is he's looking for this longer contract where teams kind of see that Anthony Santander is 30 years old. For the Toronto Blue Jays' sake, you see how the George Springer contract is aging. You hand out another contract that's $20+ million. You have a guy with Anthony Santander that isn't very good at defense whatsoever, probably ends up being your DH down the line. It's a little bit of a high risk contract. And with the fit, it makes a lot of sense. And Keane Matheson had a good blurb about this when he was talking about the Anthony Santander sweepstakes, is that at the start of the season, it made some sort of sense. Right now, makes a ton of sense. And it's kind of the hole that the Toronto Blue Jays have let themselves in. Is Anthony Santander is one of the only game changers left in the free agent market that can help this team compete in 2025. Like Ross Atkins has promised the fan base, this team is supposed to be competitive for 2025. You look at the start of this offseason, they offer Anthony Santander this deal. I think that's a fairly good deal, at least at the start of the negotiations at. But now, where you're at with this current offseason, where you're at with this current Toronto Blue Jays team, is Andres Gimenez got traded for. You got a Yimi Garcia signing, and then Josh Walker. Are we supposed to get excited about that? Yes, it's bullpen depth, but we were looking for a game-changing signing. We were looking for a signing that can at least get fans on board, get some people on board with saying the Toronto Blue Jays can bounce back, have a competitive offense, starting pitching, bullpen, obviously, kind of be pointing at the wayside, at least for this episode. But now the Toronto Blue Jays, where they're at, is if they lose out on Anthony Santander, because the team goes to that 5th year, that 6th year, if you want to be competitive right now, like Ross Atkins has said, you're going to have to offer him that extra year of term. Because what else is the Toronto Blue Jays front office offering right now? You're offering success to the team. You're offering the farm system. Toronto Blue Jays don't have a lot of trade chips right now. They don't have a lot of incentive to come to the Toronto Blue Jays, other than maybe overpaying for a star like Anthony Santander.
Well, and again, we've talked about why Santander fits, and you're 100% right. Keegan Matheson's 100% right. Now makes more sense than ever why you need to get Anthony Santander. Um, and what I'm about to say is going to be a little hypocritical because of the episode we just put out on Friday talking about George Springer and how that deal went horribly. And now we're looking back and being like, oh, now we're in a tough spot. But the problem is there was no success in that period of time. Right now, if they had success in the early years with George Springer, we're looking at that contract and being like, we got what we needed out of George Springer. So I think the longer term from Anthony Santander, these two contracts to me seem very similar. I feel like it could go the same way. And that is a scary thing for all the Blue Jays fans. You don't want another George Springer eventually. But you have to take those risks. It's high risk, high reward, right? So yes, Santander this might end up being a bad contract that we all look back at and being like, wow, he really fell off. And now we're sitting with a $20 million hole in our pocket. But at the same time, if you want to be competitive right now and you want to have a chance at making the playoffs, this is a move that absolutely has to happen no matter what the risk is. So again, a little hypocritical on my behalf talking about the George Springer contract. But the situation, well, is actually is actually the same. But again, we wouldn't be looking at the George Springer contract as poorly as we are if they would have had some success early on. And now, yes, it does look very similar to what's going on with Anthony Santander.
Well, and just looking at the market right now, if you have that kind of stained image in your head of a longer term contract, that 6 year contract with George Springer, you kind of see how that is working out right now. If you're the Toronto Blue Jays, of course, you want to sign him to a 3 year deal. You want to sign him to a 4 year deal. That minimizes the risk a lot more, but you're not really playing ball in your own ballpark anymore. You're kind of taking it to Anthony Santander's home ballpark and you're kind of giving him all the power. I have a list that I went through of just names that the Toronto Blue Jays have been in on and obviously have not signed at the end of the day. So the first one, Juan Soto, obviously the big one. This is in no particular order. I'm just going to start rifling them off. Teoscar Hernandez, Nick Pivetta. Nick Pivetta is still available. Corbin Burns, Gleyber Torres, Max Fried, Danny Jansen, Jonathan Loizaga, Jordan Romano, Michael Conforto, Clay Holmes, Travis d'Arnaud. And then I have Jesus Luzardo, and that's in a trade, and Josh Naylor, which is in a trade. It's a long list. It's a lot of podium finishes for the Toronto Blue Jays right now. And as we're in January, and the free agent class is running thinner and thinner and thinner. Right now, the three game changers that I'm looking at, and again, Fitz kind of compromised when you look at Anthony Santander. You look at, and I'll go into the other two, but Santander, you need a quarter outfielder, fairly obvious. Won't go too much more into that as we'll cover it the rest of this episode. Alex Bregman, that's still a guy that I'd be in on, but same thing, probably wants a longer term, probably going to age poorly. It's not going to be a contract that you're looking for in his 5th, 6th, 7th year. It's probably going to be one that you're more paying dividends in the first 3 or 4 years. And you have Pete Alonso, which, again, I'm not exactly high on Pete Alonso. Again, short-term fix. You can get this guy for like a 1, 2, 3-year deal. That's perfect, but I don't think that's exactly what Pete Alonso is looking for. And when we talk about long-term deals with the Toronto Blue Jays, and just under the Ross Atkins era, I went through also the Ross Atkins era's deals with the bats. Now, I left the pitchers out of this because obviously we're looking for a power hitter. Looking at the Ross Atkins era of just longer term contracts he signed, more than 1 year, not even longer term, just more than 1 year contracts that Ross Atkins has signed. Kendrys Morales, 3 year, $33 million, 2016, the George Springer one, as we all know. Steve Pearce, 2 years, $12.5 million. That's in 2016 as well. Lourdes Gurriel, 7 years, $22 million. Bought arbitration 2016. That aged beautifully. Playing for a guy like Lourdes Gurriel Jr., just over $3 million a year. That is something I'm going to take every single day of the week. And then you have IKF on a 2-year deal. Not a lot of names on that extended contract. We have a ton of 1 years like Marcus Semien, Jose Bautista back in 2017 was a 1 year. Obviously, Justin Turner, Kevin Kiermaier more recently. But this franchise, this organization under Ross Atkins isn't too likely to spend on these longer term deals. So I don't think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to budge too much just based off history to go into that 5th year, into that 6th year for Anthony Santander. And it might come down to them maybe overpaying a little bit more for a 4-year deal. But at the end of the day, Anthony Santander has all the power. If he wants a 5-year contract, probably going to get a 5-year contract, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, Carter. And you know what? I know we got to take a break here soon. And I want to get into those other two names that you brought up, of course, Alex Bregman and Pistol Pete. Just because you have to look at the fit as well. And I'm going to talk about the contract again. So we'll maybe reach more into that in the second segment here. But with Santander himself in the contract, he does hold all the power. And the Toronto Blue Jays are at the mercy of Anthony Santander right now because they need to make a move to satisfy us as fans, the players in the organization, and being competitive, not losing money, hopefully, at the Rogers Center. So they're going to have to do something. And I think if you wait out on Anthony Santander, I don't know that another deal comes your way that's a possibility. Yes, you talked about Pistol, you talked about Bregman. I'll get into them. But if you miss out on this, it sort of seems like your window's closed. And that I think to the fans, that's saying that you didn't go and do everything you could have done to bolster this team when that was a promise that was made at the beginning of this year. And that promise right now has not come to fruition. So I'll be looking to see how this contract develops. I think if I'm the Blue Jays, I give them I think honestly, you give them $115 million over 5 years, and you say, we want you in Toronto, and this is how bad we want you in Toronto, because you need somebody. And Anthony Santander, I said from the moment that we hit this offseason, probably before, that Anthony Santander was my guy going into free agency. I said, if there's one guy you want to go after, because I knew in my head that Soto probably wasn't going to be the Toronto Blue Jays option, that Santander was a great piece to have as a backup, especially knowing Teoscar Hernandez, knowing the history there, and him probably not coming back and being a Toronto Blue Jay after just obviously winning a World Series. But Carter, in saying all of that, I want to take a quick break here. I want to come back because I want to talk a little bit about the Alex Bregman, the Pistol Pete, and the Anthony Santander, sort of the remaining pieces, where this might go, where this might lead for the Toronto Blue Jays, their willingness to spend on all these guys. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. I'm telling you guys, FanDuel is my only place where I'll place my bets because I know I can win and I can use the live same game parlays, and that helps. I like to know how guys are doing. I like to be able to see, okay, who's playing well today? Okay, that's where I'll throw my money. I don't want to go into the game blind. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Take advantage. Now's your time. Win or lose those bonus bets. It's $200 of free play money. Do what you want with it. I would be jumping on this but I have my account already. I've done that. So again, new customers, make sure you go grab your bonus bets. I know I've been saying I was going to get Carter up to date on it. I have gotten him. He got his bonus bets last time. A couple of my buddies wanting to start placing bets as well. I'm going to hook them up with FanDuel to make sure they get their $200 in bonus bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Carter, I know I sort of ended last segment talking about Alex Bregman, Pistol Pete, and Anthony Santander, sort of as the remaining three pieces here, because I know we're going to talk pitching and what's still available in that market, probably on Wednesday, barring any big moves that happen. And when I look at the hittings aspect of the Toronto Blue Jays and what the need is, and I like Pistol Pete. I really do. I've been a fan of his. I enjoy his game. Is he a good fit for this Toronto Blue Jays team? Not really. Not really. I mean, I guess he splits time with Vlad at 1. Maybe you throw over Vlad at 3 for more games if that's the option. And him and Vlad also share DHing responsibilities as well. So there is a possibility there with Pete, but it doesn't give you a lot of options. It doesn't fill that hole in the field that you want. And then Alex Bregman, Carter. Alex Bregman, to me, is a great fit. You need a third baseman that can sort of be in the whole group with Bo Bichette and Jimenez and all these guys. You want to be able to round out that infield. But the problem is what does that deal look like? And it's probably more years than the Blue Jays want to use for a guy like Alex Bregman. Doesn't fill the outfield spot, which I think is, me and you have talked about this again from the time that this regular season or the playoffs or regular season, whatever, came to an end, is that's probably our weakest link right now is that outfield position. So Santander obviously makes the most sense. But again, we always have to go back to the caveat of what if that doesn't happen, right? Because we've been put in this situation before. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani, not too many moves that come out of that one. No plan B. Juan Soto doesn't sign here. What's plan B? Santander and Teoscar Hernandez. Teoscar Hernandez now not an option. So now what is plan C post Anthony Santander? Is it Bregman or Pistol Pete? Is that sort of where your head's at?
If the team wants to compete, they're going to have to sign a big free agent. They're going to have to sign a power bat. You miss out on Santander. I don't love the Bregman fit either right now, especially after you make that Andres Gimenez trade. I just don't understand. And for the future, I do get it for 2025. I just don't know how that's going to play. You get Bregman obviously at third base, then you have guys like Ernie Clement, you have Elvis Martinez, you have Will Wagner. Where are you supposed to play these guys? You can't have every single guy just sitting on your bench waiting for rest days. So Alex Bregman doesn't really make a lot of sense to me unless you want to DH him most of the time, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because he's a pretty good defender. If you were going to go that route, I think you go more so with Pete Alonso because this guy's probably your full-time DH at this point. You sign him to a 5-6 year deal. Do you want to pay $20+ million to a guy that's exclusively going to DH? Not exactly what you want to do as Toronto Blue Jays fans either. And with all the volatility that could happen at the end of 2025, is it in your best interest to sign a long-term DH for that term? I don't think so personally. So we go back to Anthony Santander, and it just kind of seems like you're all out with Santander. Yes, there's Jurickson Profar. Yes, there's lower tier corner outfielders than you can go for. But if you want to compete, if you want a game-changing bat in your lineup, if you want a fit that is going to work for your Toronto Blue Jays in 2025 in the very short term, it's Anthony Santander, especially when you have Dalton Varsho probably going to miss the first month at minimum of the season. Looks like he might even miss a little bit into May as well. So you're going to have to roll either Jonathan Colossi, Joey Lopervito, George Springer. Someone's going to have to be in that center field role. Maybe Davis Schneider takes over that left field role, barring any other free agent signings, obviously. And then you'd have Santander sitting in that right field spot. So not the greatest defensive outfield I've ever heard of. But again, we've talked about in this podcast, we don't really care about defense anymore. We need offense, and we need it desperately right now. One thing I do want to go into is just how could Anthony Santander kind of age if it is a 5th-year deal, if it is a 6th-year deal. So I just wanted to go into the Anthony Santander stats from this last season, and that's kind of the problem with some of these contract talks is that Anthony Santander is coming off of a career year, and he is expected to make a little bit more money than he would have if he had the average Anthony Santander season, more so, I guess, like 2022 and 2023. So again, just some average stats here. Since talking about average, 235 average guy. Anthony Santander, not going to hit for average. It's just not who he is. He's a guy that's going to drive the ball in a gap. He's going to hit home runs, and that's why you're paying a guy like Anthony Santander. 44 home runs. That's going to be the number that sticks out for a lot of people. I believe that was 3rd in the league in the MLB last season. 44 home runs, definitely hard to come by. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in 2021 had 48 home runs. So, and that was a very good year, obviously, from Vladimir Guerrero Jr., runner-up MVP. RBIs, 102 RBIs for Santander, 506 slugging, OPS plus of 134. The only issue is that in typical Toronto Blue Jays fashion, you make a signing like this, and maybe it doesn't go necessarily too well that first year. You have Anthony Santander, you sign this guy, and he has a league average season where maybe he puts up even 70 RBIs, 20 home runs. That probably, like, your offensive output is just completely diminished right there. And that's kind of the problem with putting all of your eggs in one basket. But now we're at the point where if you would have made some more minor signings, maybe get a couple guys on $10 million deals, you get a couple guys maybe on 15, or even on the 5, and you take some more risks on a guy like Jurickson Profar last season, got a $1 million contract and was a very good player for the San Diego Padres. So are you barring any of this risk? Like, does it kind of keep creeping in the back of your head if you're talking about a longer term deal with Anthony Santander?
Of course, a little bit. To your point about Jurickson Profar, I have no faith that he's going to replicate the season he had last year. I'm completely out on that. So, if that's the signing that it ends up being, pass. When we're talking about Anthony Santander, though, we have to look at what's the base. What were we asking for last season? 20 home run hitters, and we had none besides Vlad. So even if you get 20, 25 home runs from Santander, yes, it's not what you're looking for. You're probably looking for upper 20s, higher 20s, low 30s home runs. But it's still better than what you had. And that is improving this team through the offseason. And yes, it's not great. We'll probably be complaining about that the home runs aren't coming at the pace we wanted them to. But you have to still think that that's still a bonus compared to what we have now. And yes, there are guys that maybe go out and do hit 20 next year. There probably is a few of the guys that probably hit 20 next year. But are we going to sort of bank everything on hope and a prayer that 4 guys hit 20 home runs? That's just, that doesn't make any sense to me. That's just not going to happen. So to get Anthony Santander, a guy that his base is probably 20, I think you have to be happy with that. I think if that's the worst case scenario, I think that's an all right worst case scenario.
And that's exactly why I think the Toronto Blue Jays are going for the shorter term deal, because if it doesn't work out in the first year, in the second year, you still have 4 more years of Anthony Santander on that type of contract for a guy that doesn't provide any defense. Again, probably going to be a DH as he gets farther and farther down the road in age. Because this guy, again, going into his age 30 season, you got to assume that it's going to be good at least the first 2 years. Again, maybe there is a little bit of de-escalating and just, falling off. And for a lack of a better term, can't figure the word right now. But for Santander, like last year, 44 home runs, 2.9 WAR. And that's, again, very good offensive season, not taking anything away from that. But it's hitting or bust for Santander. And you're right. You do have to take these risks. If you want to compete, you're going to have to pay out some of these bigger contracts, especially right now with your current state of your baseball team. But for me, if it goes up to 5 years, it goes up to 6 years, I'm kind of on board a little bit with Ross Atkins here, where I much rather pay the larger or average annual value with maybe it's 25, maybe 24 million, compared to giving up that extra year, because I don't really want to see another George Springer aging contract in the Toronto Blue Jays land.
And I'd be totally fine with that. If you want to overpay him at $25, $26 million for 3 or 4 years, totally great. I'm more happy with that as well. But I think if you look at Anthony Santander, him wanting a longer term deal, a 5 or 6 year, probably a 5. You're probably not going past 5 in my head. But am I worried about that? No, because if this season doesn't go well for this Toronto Blue Jays team, they're probably blowing it up. Vlad's probably walking, Bo's probably walking, and it won't matter anyway. This team is not going to be competitive after that anyway. So you have Santander sitting there. Well, at least it's a big name that draws in fans for them. That's it. At least you have somebody. Whereas if you don't do this deal and the Blue Jays suck next year anyway, and Vlad and Bo both walk, now you got 0.
I just can't wait if the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm not going to say somehow suck this year, because that's definitely a possibility, but the Toronto Blue Jays are just bad next year. For all the people that were asking for the rebuild before this season, they are going to have their pitchforks in the air. Maybe they are going to be storming Rogers Center, because there's going to be the biggest I told you so of all time in Toronto Blue Jays land. We were kind of on the fence. Obviously, we want to see a good product on the field, but you see the farm system, you see the kind of direction this team is going. Again, maybe if free agency was a little bit different this year, we got a little bit more of a positive taste in our mouth. But again, we want to see good baseball. Obviously, we want the Toronto Blue Jays to be like the Dodgers. We want them to buy every single top free agent. We want them to be good every single season. Is that what we're going to get? I guess that's what we're going to have to see. But it's definitely going to help if Anthony Santander does come to the Toronto Blue Jays.
Well, Carter, you know what? I always want to have, I try to have fun on the podcast, but it doesn't always go well for me because I get frustrated because me and you, I mean, we sit here every day. And I think that's what some people don't necessarily see is that me and you sit here every day and we talk about this stuff. If it's on the podcast every single day, or even on our weekends, we end up seeing our buddies and we have these same conversations. So it does get frustrating and I want to have fun. But Carter, what I'm going to leave it to you. What you're about to bring up in this third segment here that we're going to do, I think a lot of people aren't going to necessarily love, and they're going to understand why sometimes frustration bleeds into this podcast. So we'll come right back. Oh God, I can't wait to see people's reactions on this one. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. I always talk about how great Game Time is, how much I love it because I get tickets cheaper and I like to go to sporting events if it's, Winnipeg Jets games out here in Winnipeg or Toronto Blue Jays games when we go down or wherever we go. I always try to use Game Time because they always have some deals on or something going on that I get cheaper tickets. So why would I not do it? And like I said, I love going to the live events, the sporting events, but there's also comedy, theater, music. One of my favorite memories, I attended a concert the other last year, I think it was, and we got our tickets all through Game Time because why wouldn't we? It makes it so much easier, so much faster. And now Game Time has made it even easier to get your tickets for sporting events with their new Game Time Picks features. This feature filters out all the fluffs and only shows you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Okay, this is either going to go one of two ways here. People are going to be livid that this happened or that this was posted, or people are going to be like, let the guy have a vacation. He works hard. Which way do you think it's going to go, Carter?
Yeah, we're gonna have to see. I'm gonna just try to throw it up here. I don't know if for the people on YouTube they can see. There's a guy in a red shirt over there, and that is our friend. That's maybe not our friend is the improper term there, but it's our general manager, and that is Ross Atkins on vacation. People were wondering why has a transaction not been made. Why has it been 3 weeks since we had the day of transactions? Apparently, you had Yimi Garcia and the Andres Jimenez trade in the same day, but we got Ross Atkins on a boat. On a yacht, debatably. It's tough to see from this picture. Just enjoying himself, cracking a beer at 8:13 in the morning, is having a good time. At this point, is this where we're at with Ross Atkins? Does he deserve this? How do you feel about the picture that I ended up showing you today?
No, I'm not necessarily. I sort of preface this badly because I'm not super pissed about it. It was hilarious because it's just like, wow, this is the most typical Toronto Blue Jays things of all time that, fans are losing their mind about deals not happening and Ross Atkins is out there fishing. Whatever he's doing on the boat, I don't know. No, I'm not overly upset about it. Like, again, this guy is at every game, all this stuff going on all season long. At some point, these guys got to have a little bit of downtime as well. So I'm not like this. Like, he could be gone for 3 days or even a day. And it's like, probably nothing's happening. Probably he's got his phone on him. Probably he has people that, are handling these things behind the scenes while he takes, a day break. Yes, it is a full-time gig, some of these things, but people do need breaks, everything like that. So I'm not like, this is not something I'm super like harping him on.
Yeah, I'm going to shed some light on this. Believe it or not, Ross Atkins is not the only one making the decisions for the Toronto Blue Jays. It's not just, okay, Ross, what are we doing today? And he just, throws out some names and then that's who they go after. There's obviously a team. He's got some people under them that he's asking for advice, different, whether it's research team, scoutings, you name it. It's not just Ross Atkins. Is Ross Atkins the last guy that probably has to say in everything? For sure. Maybe that's Mark Shapiro as well. Maybe that's a little bit of the Rogers ownership group. But yeah, it's kind of like if you're a politician goes on vacation and anyone sees that ever, they're not going to be too happy about it. But I think I'm gonna end it with this. Ross Atkins, I said, he's got a beer on this boat. What do you think Ross Atkins drinks? Like, what's his beer of choice? Does he drink beer? Like, what's his alcoholic beverage of choice?
That's a great question. Like, again, For some reason, I just think back to when we were in Toronto and we went to Paris, Texas, and it was like $17 like Modelo's or whatever they were, and I could totally see him like pulling up like to the boat with like a 12 of Modelo. I don't even know if you can get Modelos in 12s, but like it's something like ridiculous that's like more expensive than they should be, and he thinks he's like looking sick drinking it, and it's like, all right, dude, like you're drinking a beer, take it easy.
I got the obvious one, but I'm not going to elaborate whatsoever. You're going to have to use your imagination. It's Bud Light, and it's always been Bud Light. And we're going to leave it at that. But
Jesus.
thank you guys for watching. The likes, comments, everything recently has been appreciated. Again, I hope you guys are on board with just any sort of free agent signing. Obviously, Santander, the Toronto Blue Jays have emerged as the front runners, but we've heard that song and dance before. We've seen it play out. Usually doesn't go too well for the Toronto Blue Jays, but an offer is in. We have noticed that about 68% of you guys are not subscribed. So you guys are tuning in the podcast, coming back for every single episode. We do appreciate it. But if you do subscribe, it helps us out a ton, and it keeps our podcast at the top of your page. But Braden, you got anything else to add to this Santander Ross Atkins episode for our Monday?
Hand to God. I'm a Michelob Ultra guy, and Carter, I think we're probably going to go have a few after this. So let's wrap it up. It's a Monday. We got to start the week off right. Other than that, have a great week, everybody. It's going to be hopefully something happens, so we're not, all just sitting on our hands. But it's saying that, like Carter said, appreciate everything. The support lately has been unbelievable. The comments have been going crazy. My favorite part of like watching an episode afterwards, like watching what happens, the comments go up, is where people like get like sort of go back at each other in the comments of like, hey, this is my take, and then they start going off. My favorite thing of all time, by the way. So continue to do that. If you disagree with somebody in the comments, let them know. Be respectful. Let them know. Have those discussions. Have those arguments. It only makes it more fun. This is what sports is all about: connecting with people. Hopefully, you guys get some of that from this podcast. Carter, let's get out of here. Let's have a good week.